U.S. hockey team has not been successful 4 straight Olympics. As you go through life, you learn from your successes, but you learn even more from your failures.
True story on that. If we can find the mind space to not look at ourselves just in the role of failing, but that it was just a lesson along the way. Welcome to Game Changers Mindset Podcast. Podcast is for people who believe that life isn't just something we experience, it's something we shape. I'm Jeffrey Allen, I'm one of the guides, and joining me, of course, is Asad Koshal, who is just the founder and most amazing man I have yet to meet.
Today we're going to talk about experience the best teacher and the worst. And we're going to have this discussion within the context of the movie Miracle, which is a true story about the 1980 Olympic hockey team, arguably one of the biggest upsets in the history of sports. And we're going to use lesson number 13.
This is going to be pretty powerful then.
Yes.
Given the upset of what took place here.
Yes. I remember that it was a remarkable event. We were so happy the next day at school.
Right.
And
do you want to set a little of this clip up before we dive in?
Sure. So what's happening here is this is fairly early in the movie. Coach Brooks has been hired as a coach of the 1980 Olympic hockey team. And he's actually, in this clip, it is about 2.5 minutes. And he is actually looking at the picture of the 1960 Olympic hockey team in which he was a player.
Got it.
But what happens is he was a player, but maybe shortly before the Olympics itself, he was cut. That team does go on to the Olympics.
And he had put in all the work and everything else.
He had put in all the work.
He was cut for no reasons other than the fact that he just wasn't.
I'm not sure the reason he was cut, but he did not then go to Rome and to be part of the Olympics.
Okay, all right.
And so he's reflecting on that. And he's thinking about that and how that, let's say, call it failure, had a very big impression on him. He's thinking about this, and he is then approached by his wife, Mrs. Brooks.
He's got to kind of break this to her, what he's thinking about. And by this point, he's been asked to coach.
No, yeah, he is the coach.
He is the coach, okay.
He is the coach, and he's working all types of hours, day and night. And so Mrs. Brooks is like, look, I wasn't really consulted in this situation that you would be the coach, and basically it's consuming you. That, I'm doing everything with the kids, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
And so he responds by saying, look, this is something that he feels he must do. And Coach Brooks sees, but he does tell Mrs. Brooks that even if I'm successful, it's not going to mean a lot unless you are fully supportive of me.
Not unlike any team or partnership or anything, right? Yeah. You need alliance.
Exactly. So there are two key themes here at the individual level. I mean, one is deflating pride, and two is family relations being a catalyst for actual success.
Right. Having the support of the loved ones and the people that surround us and stuff. Yeah. Now if I remember, he approached this pretty timidly because of how much time he had been gone and the humility that he had to go to his wife with.
Yes.
It was an interesting interplay between the two of them.
Yeah, yes, definitely. And then she, after they have the conversation, she's also fully supportive, right? And because in one respect, Brooks does say that as long as I can think, I've wanted to coach the team in the Olympics.
Because he had looked at himself as a bit of a failure because he didn't go. So he's carried that with him for a very long time.
Yeah, for 2 decades.
Yeah, really long time.
I think part of it is, and we have to step back a little bit to understand the circumstance that the previous 4 Olympics, the Soviet Union has won the gold medal.
They dominated.
Yeah. And so here, a lot of the coaches who are say college coaches don't even want to take up this challenge.
Right. Yeah.
Because like the conventional wisdom, let's use that word, is the team is not going to be too successful. So even when he's being interviewed, it's like, the general understanding is this is a very tough position for someone to take. We are probably not going to win a medal. We just don't want to be embarrassed.
Embarrassed, yes. I do remember that.
And so Coach Brooks, he understands that he must have family support to be successful. Because when you undertake a task that's almost all-consuming, and it is, because Coach Brooks is living, eating, and drinking, prepping for the Olympics, he had, and in an environment like that, in a situation like that, inevitably your loved ones are going to feel the downstream effects of
They'll
that.
pay the cost.
Yeah, and so this is how it is. So he deflates his pride. He approaches Miss Brooks in a respectful manner. There's family relations, and it shows, leadership and legacy, how he's understanding this. So I think his experience. So like the experience, the best teacher in the worst.
Painful experience.
Yeah, his painful experience of being cut in 1960 from the 1960 Olympic team is actually a catalyst for him to pull off arguably the greatest upset in the history of sports 2 decades later.
Big motivator, wasn't it? Yeah, it was
the
for him.
motivator.
It was for him.
Some people might just say, "I hate hockey. I don't want to ever play again." Right? He doesn't do this. He not only he goes on. He takes up an enormous challenge.
And you made it's. I'm thinking backwards now, but you made mention of the fact that whenever they were all being interviewed and they were saying, "Just don't embarrass us," and all the rest of that stuff. It's interesting sometimes when you take on a really big challenge, people would still consider mediocrity as a success.
Yes.
And he was not about to have any part of that.
Yes.
Personally, it didn't align with him, and he couldn't accept that. But he also, I'm trying to remember, did he push back on that, or did he just accept what they were saying, knowing that he had to forge a new path? I think that's the way this went, wasn't it?
No, he pushes back. And that's the thing, that one of the things driving his decision is not only him being cut from the 1960 Olympic hockey team, although he was in the team picture. So that's how late he was cut.
Right.
It is that he wants an opportunity
To prove it.
to go and say mano a mano with the Soviet Union and beat them.
Yeah.
He says, as long as he can remember, he's wanted to coach this team.
Right. Right.
And again, the fact that the Olympics are in Lake Placid, New York, etc. All this plays into it. So one big thing driving him towards this is that he was cut. But another big thing is he wants the opportunity to go up against the best and defeat the best.
And not only that, when I saw this scene, it also reminded me that when we suffer our own defeats or our own setbacks, he was a great observer of the Russian teams, of winning teams, and he had like this compendium of knowledge, observable knowledge. I don't know how much of it was practical or experience. That also kind of informed him where his true north was when it came to his leadership on this team and how to accomplish his wish or his goal.
He understood at a very deep level the sum is greater than the parts.
Right.
And the players that are going to be on this team, their potential will be optimized by the group dynamics that I put together.
Yeah. Yeah, he had big vested interest in that. I wonder if that came out of his own lack of experience when he was on that team, or again, was it just observable? And he had enough humility to actually incorporate those lessons.
No, so what had happened is when he's picked to coach a team, he has won 3 NCAA AA championships. So he's a very experienced coach. From a triangular perspective, when we're analyzing this, so one thing we can highlight here is...
Let's go back to that point.
Yes.
Triangulating our reasoning for doing all of this in the way we think.
So 2 triangles we can reference here. One is wisdom is what? Doing the right thing in the right manner at the right time. It cannot be 1 or 2 of the 3.
Right.
And most people will emphasize doing the right thing, but it has to be, the timing has to be right, and the manner in which we do things also matters. So that's one very key point. That's a quote actually from Ibn Qayyum. That's not Assad's coastal quote. Okay? All right. We've learned from people who have come before us, whether it's Eleanor Roosevelt saying small minds discuss people, average minds discuss events, and great minds discuss ideas, or the one I think it was one of the sessions we discussed, Truman, the buck stops here.
The buck stops here, yep, exactly.
Okay. So, but here, triangular, one is the competitor being a catalyst for improvement.
Right.
That's one part of the triangle. Second part is personal growth due to adversity.
Right.
And this is a difficult thing. I mean, for those of us from the local high school team, it's sometimes a little difficult to overcome.
Or any setbacks in business, personal, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And then learning through adversity. It's just not personal growth, but then he learned.
Therefore, no experience is wasted. Everything has value.
Exactly.
And learning to accept that as part of a universal wisdom.
Yeah. And what he does here is he understands this exactly that, wait, their strength is not that they are better than us.
Right.
That the Soviet players are better than the American players.
Yeah.
The thing is, they have a system in which they optimize the talent of the athletes.
In saying that, he had to accept with humility that was the reality of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so often in business and other things, we want to create what we think is the situation, so we kind of fabricate around it, or we intensify or maximize our own abilities, and we don't go into our challenges best prepared because we lack that.
Yes, and this is the thing, he does reflect, like, okay, why have our Olympic teams over the last 4 Olympics not been successful?
Yeah.
And he uses that and those game films as tools of inquiry and analysis
Right.
that positions him to say, how am I going to coach this team differently?
Yeah. Because he had to challenge his team to think expansively when it came to, in a moment's notice, what do you change to? What do you have to redirect or reposition or whatever was involved in them becoming highly competitive and then ultimately winners?
Exactly. So like the way that he coaches this is, the first thing is he says, okay, we are going to be the best conditioned team in the Olympics. Now that you can see a lot of coaches could go along with. But the second, that we are going to have the best team chemistry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because historically, the Soviet Unions have had the best team chemistry on the ice.
Right.
And he's going to challenge that notion. And he does it. So he's learning from the competitor. That's one arc. That's one corner of the triangle. Personal growth through adversity. Going back to when he was cut from the Olympic team.
Yeah.
Okay. And then learning through adversity. The U.S. hockey team has not been successful 4 straight Olympics. But what he's going to do is he's looking to first change the narrative.
Which was a personal decision.
Yes.
Yeah. Because those that were supporting him weren't necessarily asking him to do that. They were just didn't want to be embarrassed.
Yes.
Right. So he had to exceed even the expectations.
Yeah. That's one reason we use sports movies. Because many of these stories, the people are exceeding their own expectations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And driven by personal loss, setbacks, just an inner drive that says, I can be more, when maybe the voice in your head has said for a long time, who do you think you are? Or why would you even try to do that?
Yes.
Not uncommon. And people just stay stuck as a result of not even wanting to press what they know.
Yes.
Yeah. Or what they believe about themselves, I guess. Yeah. More to that point. With that, there is a context in which he could have led this team down a different path. It could have been one of just revenge for him personally. The team could never have bought into that.
No, they wouldn't have. See, the thing is, he approaches this by saying, sometimes in a group setting or a team setting, the presenter may be saying something, or the coach or the department head may be saying something,
Right.
and those that are listening the reason it doesn't penetrate the messaging is because they think that the person saying it doesn't believe it himself,
Right.
or herself.
Right.
The way he approaches it, even when they're practicing, they really believe Coach Brooks believes this.
The difference between good and great, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And he says, hey, look, my job is to put the best team on the ice, etc. And so this is his life's mission, at least in his profession, in the context of the movie. And he's extremely effective at it. And so he believes it. He gets his assistant coach, I forget what the assistant coach's name is now, but he buys in, and then the players buy in.
Right. But isn't that a sign of a great leader?
Yes.
Is whenever you get the team to come along and begin to see the vision. And I'm sure you've had experiences, I know I have too personally, where you're in leadership roles, and sometimes it takes a while.
Yes.
And you can't get impatient just because people can't get there as quickly as you'd like them to.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So I know that's always a big challenge for all of us that are getting there.
Yeah.
There is support from the competitors. It was learning through adversity. I don't want to walk away from that one, because I think that is such a valuable contributor to what makes us really great, productive individuals. Is if we can find the mind space to not look at ourselves just in the role of failing, but that it was just a lesson along the way. It wasn't, it's a part of the story, it's not the whole story.
Yes.
How many people get sidelined and just become bitter and lost, and they actually end up doing more destruction and more disservice because of that?
Your background is in therapy,
Well,
so
that's
you
true.
you understand.
So I'm seeing it from a whole.
Yeah,
that
you're seeing
perspective.
it from a very a perspective that's extremely valuable, and that's important. Like, we're all going to, when we're learning how to ride a bike, we're all going to fall off the bike.
Yeah.
And the question is that as you go through life, you learn from your successes, but you learn even more from your failures.
True story on that. Okay, so I'm learning, my daughter's maybe 6 or 7. We're learning to rollerblade together. We're in a huge lot, and she was terrified of it. So she had knee pads and arm pads and everything else. And I was determined I was going to learn how to do this with her. And I had to warn her before we began. I said, remember, when we fall, that means we're having fun.
Yeah.
And it's part of what we're going to do. And to this day, she'll get up and out skate me. She ice skates, she does all kinds of other stuff. I have never touched the thing again. But I remember having to learn that lesson with her.
Yes.
That it's going to be part of the process. A skinned knee means you had a great day.
Yeah.
Rather than the other, where we kind of live prophylactically and very protective of, I can't hurt, I can't upset, I can't do any of those things. And so I love that whenever we see Coach Brooks literally just all out, challenging people to their own personal greatness. And as a result, the team shines.
Yes.
That was so exciting in that movie. And then to know that unfolded in real life too, that was always great.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the best way never to strike out is to never to go to bat.
Right.
And this is the thing, like, it's interesting, even in thanatology, this is one key point a lot of people talk about, that they wish that they would have taken more risks now when they are reaching the end stage of their life.
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't mean take rash risks. No one is saying this, but most humans can do more than they're doing.
Right.
And that's just not a cliche.
Yeah.
And so here we see this, that he is learning from the competitors. Okay? How do they play the game? Their style is different. They optimize the talents of the athletes better than the way that we play in the U.S., because there are 3 main systems of hockey in the world. There's the American system, there's the Canadian system, and then there's the Soviet system.
Right.
And most people are playing one of those 3 systems.
Right.
So what does he say? I'm going to do a hybrid of the American and Canadian system.
That was such a foreign concept, wasn't it? In the interview when he said, I'm going to introduce this, and they looked at him like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. And then when we take a step back here, but in order for him to be successful, he has to get immediate family members on board.
Right. Right. He started where he could in his sphere of influence, and he built out.
Yes.
Yeah. It was remarkable the way that was portrayed.
Yes.
And as we see the result, where there's great success at the end. I'm trying to remember, because I've heard you say this before, but the importance of putting everything we've got into a situation for that great return and for that great reward.
Yeah,
all right. I could talk about this with you forever and ever and ever, but I want to be respectful. There's some key takeaways that I would like you to identify coming out of this and as we move forward.
From a visual proverb perspective, bottom left of the triangle is learning from competitors, right? The bottom right of the triangle is personal growth, due to adversity, and then learning through adversity. So there's personal growth, and then also learning through failures and difficulty at a institutional level.
Right, right.
Because he's asking the Amateur Hockey Federation to make an institutional mind shift, not just an individual.
That's like turning the Titanic.
Exactly.
Please turn around.
Yes. Exactly, and that's what. And so here, Coach Brooks uses reflections of how he, weeks before the 1960 Olympic hockey team, that informed his coaching approach and decisions of what he was looking to decades later. The humble approach to Mrs. Brooks, because even without the 1980 thing, he's a very successful coach. He's won 3 NCAA titles. Right. And he says he asked for her support in a modest, sincere way, signaling the importance of support from home.
And without it, it would have been just a shallow success.
Yeah. And then meaning through support. Coach Brooks believes that personal meaning in his coaching exists only if his family stands behind him. So here you have a person, he's being driven by let's say, a failure, to get cut weeks before. He's been a big source of support is Mrs. Brooks and his family life,
Right.
and the way that he positions himself. But again, this is just not cliches. He also understands that how the game is played, the way that the American team has played in the last few Olympics, it's going to have to change. We have to change strategy. Now, again, one part of the strategy is fairly easy to understand. They're going to be the best conditioned team in the 1980 Olympics. But the other, to come with a hybrid system of the American and Canadian system, is what they deploy.
Yeah. And it made all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
And really created a whole new legacy of hockey watchers, people that watched hockey and fans and everything that went with that, because it brought a national pride that I think was really unexpected, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was highly unexpected because, again, the Soviets have won 4 gold medals. And the U.S. defeats them and then goes on to win the gold medal. I mean, in sports, arguably, again, I'm not a sports analyst, but, you can argue the 1980 Olympic hockey team or Buster Douglas beating Tyson is arguably the biggest upset in the history of sports.
Yeah, and isn't it amazing, these leadership lessons, everything that you've called out of these movie clips, sports-related themes, right? Where we see it all come together in real live action, in teamwork, in humility, and laying down our own personal challenges and overcoming it.
Yes.
That's an extraordinary observation on your part. I just want to give you some kudos for that, and thank you for bringing us really exciting lessons out of movie clips about sports.
Yeah.
It's exciting to be a part of that.
Yeah, because through sports, we're teaching human relations and optimization of individual and team performance.
Yeah.
And even if you're not an athlete, you can understand it. You can understand it.
Well, and to your point, I think you said even clips out of Seabiscuit. How many of us have ever ridden a horse in a professional?
Yes.
None of us, right? But
None.
we can all relate to what went on.
Yes.
And we can find a common thread.
Yeah. And the clip serves as an anchor.
Exactly.
And helps retain it, and then helps also analyze the drivers of human behavior.
Yeah.
In a very unique way, in a very competitive, intense environment.
And we get to learn from that.
Yes.
That's just so amazing. That is so amazing. So Asad, once again, I thank you. This has just been a great time. It goes way too fast for me. And I would just, to our listeners, I just want to remind you that remember, when reality, possibility, and character come together, the game changes. Yeah. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.